So this is something I've been wanting to do for a while, and actually go through and explain some techniques that I do in studio, different photos that I do. Hope everybody's having a great holiday season. My name is Brian Huff. Welcome to Huff Photo Studios. And if this is something that you're interested in, consider leaving a like and a comment. I'm thinking about making this a series where I actually break down uh, some of the photos that I've shot recently. I get questions on how'd you do that? So let me actually scroll through. So what I wanted to do, let me explain the thought process behind the photo first. So I'm actually going to go through and show you sort of the progression of what it took to actually shoot this. This was shot with the Nikon Z6, and I used my Sigma 50 millimeter 1.4. And basically, this was shot in a really low light situation. So I'm gonna actually go ahead and pull up one of these that did not work. One of the things I actually learned in this process of shooting was that the particular strobes I used on this shoot had a very long flash duration, which made it, as you can see, extremely difficult to lock the subject in to focus. Learning this later on, of course, I've changed strobes now, and I shouldn't have a problem. Although I have not reattempted this shoot with the new strobes. So basically, what I did was in the camera settings, this was an 8-second exposure. Let me actually pull this up so I don't get this right. Shot on the Z6. And come on. Yeah, so this was actually, this particular shot here was a 1.6 second exposure on the 50 millimeter. I'm sorry, the 85 millimeter 1.4. Okay. Didn't even use, I thought I used the 50, I used the 85. And you can still see, you've got ghosting here and everything. It's really hard to get that locked in. So what I did was I went in, I set the camera to rear curtain sync. What happens in this situation is the camera will open the shutter up. And normally when the camera opens the shutter, we have what's called front curtain sync, and that's the flash fires immediately to freeze the subject. I did not want that in this scene. So what you'll see is a progression as we move through and we did some different changes. Of course, this one here, this is a 3-second exposure, but she didn't move. So as you can see, it's still a little bit blurry. It still didn't lock in great. The camera was on a tripod. Um, but once again, I didn't even realize that the flash duration was bad enough that if the model moved any at all, it was going to blur out. So, a little bit more tweaking and stuff to the lights. We brought in LED panels. So, in the final shot here, this is a 3-second exposure at 85 millimeter, ISO 50, shot at f5.6. So, what I did was adjusted to where I had enough depth of field at f5.6 that I knew my model was going to be in critical focus if she drifted forward or backwards any. It wouldn't be an issue. So you can see here, we finally got a tack sharp image. Also, you see all this movement around. I set the LED panels to party mode, and what that allows LED panels to do is they flash multiple colors. So during the 3 seconds of her dancing and moving, the LED panels are flashing multiple colors and making these different exposures for me until the rear curtain sync happens, which is at the end of the exposure where the actual flash fires. And when the flash fired, which was an Alien B B800, it was had a 47-inch octabox. It was on a boom pole. This was, other than the LEDs, this was a one light setup. And as you can see, we finally achieved a frozen subject at the end of the motion, which is what I wanted. The idea behind this originally. I'm going to go back to one of the original images, and you'll actually see here that she had this dress that had all these really cool sparkly things on it, and I wanted to capture all that motion of those sparkles moving around. Of course, this one's had some color treatments and stuff done to it. Um, I've actually gone through and adjusted some of the color, but once again, as you can see, this was a 1/3 of a second at f2 on the 85 millimeter, and so we still got tack sharp on the eyes. I'm not sure how great that looks on video, but I'm gonna actually flip this one to black and white. It's got some color grading on it, but that's what I was after. I wanted to capture and convey motion in the photograph. So I found a really cool way of doing that is with rear curtain sync. So the trick to rear curtain sync is once you've got your exposure and once you understand where your subject's going to be at. Now, earlier I was shooting at f2. It was a lot harder with that narrow depth of field because if your subject moved forward or back, it was really difficult to nail that narrow plane of focus. So f5.6 was perfect to give us a nice depth. So no matter how much she drifted, chances are she was going to still be in the range of focus. There was another shot that we got here as well, as you can see, that sort of has this really cool double exposure. And all that's from is doing this one in particular was an 8-second exposure. So you see in 8 seconds she had a lot more time to move around, and you had multiple lights firing. And then I'm actually going to brighten this up some so you can see a little bit more of that motion. I'm going to draw that corner out right there. There we go. So now you can actually see that she moved around quite a bit. So we had a black backdrop to sort of help kill all the light that was spilling around. And then I basically went through and adjusted the blacks, adjusted the contrast, ditched a lot of the highlights, a little bit down on it. Of course, I'm shooting raw. I'm in Lightroom, and that way I could make adjustments later on. But this is actually the final shot we ended up being really happy with. It's really cool. It looks like you've got multiple people in the shot, but it's actually just one person and all the movement that occurred before the flash went off. As you can see, it's a little bit hot on the exposure, but that's all right. We had fun with this. And I think that's really the main thing to take away from an exercise like this is this was done just to really have a lot of fun with. And I'm actually wanting to experiment with it a lot more now, especially with what I learned through this and with the new lights. I'm actually changing over to Godox lights that have a shorter flash duration. Should be a lot better for freezing that end motion. Haven't tested it yet though, so I'm going to be testing that out soon and let you know. But really, to be honest, it's not about the equipment that this was shot with. It's really the technique, and I think that that's what it comes down to a lot of times with these types of shots. Equipment, of course, you got to have equipment, but it's not the equipment that makes a shot. It's definitely the technique that you put into it and the time. This is also a really cool way to capture portraits of someone. Let's think for a moment. Let's think about fireworks. Okay, I've done this in the past. It's really fun. You can take a speed light, set your shot, set your portrait of your person, your foreground. Make sure you have your exposure set there. And then if you do rear curtain sync in your camera, and you have fireworks in the background, you can set your shutter to the amount of time that you want and capture the movement of those fireworks. And then on your rear curtain sync, when it actually fires at the end, you can expose your subject in the foreground. So that's another really cool application for this. I use the Godox wireless trigger system. This is not sponsored by anybody yet. If anybody wants to sponsor it, my email is below. But I like these just because they work. They're inexpensive. They work really well. I've had a lot of good luck with the Godox system so far. Um, and of course, I was actually triggering the XT2 was triggering XT1s here in this shot, or the Alien Bees. But my Alien Bees are no longer going to be used in studio, as far as I know. I think we're fully Godox now. We got like three 8200s and 3 or 4 speed lights. I really like being able to be wireless and module things where I can just take them outside or inside or wherever I need to go. So I'm leaving the world of wired studio lighting. Um, I just really want to be, you know, completely portable. Because you know what? When you're completely portable, then the world is your studio. You know, you can go anywhere, shoot anything. So that's kind of my thoughts behind that. Yeah, so here we go. This is a super fun shoot that we did this day. Just wanted to play around with it. I've got some friends that do dance and stuff like that, and I wanted to be able to develop a technique to where we could translate motion into a photograph and still have a really nice, sharp image at the end. Where we actually are able to lock in critical focus. We'll go in at 200%. And yeah, it's pretty sharp. Of course, that was a Nikon Z6. Shot at ISO 50 at 3 seconds at f5.6. So, you know what? Find yourself a dark room, get a flashlight, and play around with these techniques to where you can lock your camera down and have your subject moving, or have your subject still and have your light moving. There's all kinds of really fun techniques that you can play with in this sort of light painting scenario. Anyway, I'm going to start doing some series like this if this is something you're interested in, and some shots I play around with and get, and share them here. If you enjoy this type of content, let me know. Give me a comment down below, and maybe there's a technique out there that you've tried that you want me to try out. Leave it down in the comments below. I'd love to try out some new techniques and things in the photography world. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you guys on the next one.